What does the Bible say about the Black Israelites, the ancestors of all the Black people in the world? Even if conflicting opinions exist about their presence in the Bible and the genealogy of modern-day Black people, little research has been done on this subject. Today, in Europe, it's simply rejected that Black people were present with Moses, and even with Abraham before Moses. Black Israelites were also present with Jesus, and the records exist in the Bible. However, because this deep knowledge challenges the beliefs held by Europeans, the part of the Bible where this knowledge exists has been either deemed forbidden or interpreted differently. So, what does the Bible say about the Black Israelites that changes everything? Welcome to a new episode of Black Afric Diary, a channel where we talk about Black African history, culture, arts, and civilization. It's a place where you will see the real picture of Black Africa, its stories, and the events defining it. In this episode, we will explain what forbidden truth the Bible reveals about the Black Israelites that has been hidden from the world. Let's get started.
The former Congo premier who was captured when he fled inland.
To understand what the Bible says about the Black Israelites, we have to trace the roots back to Judaism. You should know that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are recognized as the three primary monotheistic religions, with Judaism holding the distinction of being the earliest among them. Unlike Christianity and Islam, Judaism places less emphasis on conversion, marking a significant difference in its approach. Its fundamental doctrines and rituals are grounded in the concept of revealed religion, where divine knowledge is believed to have been directly conveyed from a divine source to humanity. This essence of revelation sets Judaism apart as the faith of a chosen people, entrusted with the task of spreading the Creator's message to the world. At Judaism's core lies the concept of divine selection, which unfolds through three critical stages. Firstly, there's the covenant between Abraham and God, symbolized by the act of circumcision. Secondly, the transmission of divine laws, contained in the Torah, is imparted to Abraham's descendants through Moses. Lastly, God's ongoing guidance and intervention in the lives of His chosen people are expressed through prophets and angels. These beliefs are open to scrutiny, particularly concerning monotheism and practices like circumcision, inviting investigation through historical and scientific research. Interestingly, the origins of monotheism and circumcision predate the establishment of Judaism by Abraham, and that's when Africans become the center of attention. African traditions indicate the presence of such concepts in ancient Egypt and Sudan, long before Judaism's emergence. The deity of Amen, regarded as Africa's singular deity, was depicted in various forms, suggesting a unified divine entity rather than a group of gods and goddesses. There's a perspective suggesting that Western and Semitic depictions of ancient Egypt as polytheistic may have been influenced by Abrahamic narratives. Additionally, evidence of circumcision, a practice later embraced by Abrahamic traditions, predates the arrival of Semitic peoples in Egypt. This is evidenced by the depictions in the tomb of Ankh-Mahor, which dates back centuries before the Semitic presence in the region, indicating that such rituals were established long before Judaism's inception. The term hieroglyph, derived from Greek, translates to holy writing or sacred engraving. However, the creators of these symbols referred to them as Medu, signifying the words of God or God's speech. This underscores an early understanding of divine communication within African traditions, predating the emergence of Judaism and its sacred scriptures. Until this point, it should be understood that African people were in contact with God even before the rise of Judaism. However, people today see Judaism in a vacuum, not going to the roots. What's more, it has been highlighted that because God was in contact with African people, they were to be given a share of description in the following religious books. For ancient Africans, the concept of God transcended human comprehension, existing beyond our perception and remaining distant from direct communication with humanity. Instead, it's believed that God communicates through the workings of the natural world and the vast cosmos. This perspective suggests that understanding these divine messages often requires a scientific approach, recognizing the complex patterns and phenomena present in the universe. Hieroglyphs, ancient forms of writing, mirror this belief by incorporating natural elements, symbolizing the connection between the divine and the natural world. Even prior to the narrative of Abraham and the establishment of Judaism, the idea of a singular, omnipotent God resonated within human consciousness. This notion is evident in ancient religious texts, such as those discovered in the Pyramid of Kemet, dating back to some of humanity's earliest civilizations. These writings indicate that early societies embraced beliefs in divine laws and communication from a supreme creator of the universe, demonstrating a foundational understanding of monotheistic principles long before religious doctrines were formalized. Judaism, among the world's oldest monotheistic faiths, emerged within Semitic communities, a term often referenced yet not always fully comprehended. To comprehend the origins of Judaism, it's crucial to know about the identity of the Semites and how their cultural and historical context influenced the development of this religion. And that's when Black Israelites come into focus. The term Semitic traces back to Shem, a biblical patriarch believed to be the ancestor of Semitic peoples, including Hebrews, Arabs, and related groups. Scholars in the West have employed this term to categorize peoples primarily from Mesopotamia and modern-day Iraq, tracing their mythical lineage to Abraham. The Semitic groups were diverse, arising from the fusion of various populations over time. Among them were the Sumerians, celebrated as dark-skinned pioneers and early settlers of Mesopotamia, who contributed significantly to culture. Additionally, nomadic groups from northern Eurasia, known for their martial nature, influenced the Semitic heritage. Communities deeply rooted in African culture, like the Elamites, are also integral to the Semitics. Persian archers, for instance, trace their ancestry to the Elamites, credited as the earliest civilizers of Iran. The Canaanites, Phoenicians, and ancient Egyptians added further layers to the Semitic tree. Egyptians, revered as pioneers of civilization, left an indelible imprint on history through their advancements. The confluence of cultures and peoples, including Sumerians, Canaanites, and Egyptians, led to the emergence of the Akkadian Empire. Sargon of Akkad, a prominent figure, established his empire around 2300 BC, marking a significant milestone for Semitic groups in recorded history. This era followed roughly 300 years after the construction of the Great Pyramids in Africa. Nomadic Semitic tribes dispersed throughout the Near East, a region spanning Mesopotamia, Egypt, and parts of West Asia and Northeast Africa, often termed the Fertile Crescent. This locale became a crucible of cultures and civilizations, enriched by Semitic migrations and settlements. The historical and biblical accounts from the region, including tales of Abraham's odyssey from Mesopotamia to Canaan, underscore the profound influence of Semitic groups on human civilization's evolution. The historical phenomenon of nomadism among Semitic peoples was also noticed as they expanded their presence into new territories. However, a thorough examination from scientific and historical viewpoints reveals that not all Semitic populations can trace their ancestry directly back to a single progenitor, like Abraham. As these Semitic groups undertook migrations, they encountered a multitude of influences and pursued diverse paths, leading to the emergence of distinct Semitic populations characterized by unique identities and historical trajectories. From their earliest interactions, Semitic groups engaged with civilizations such as Sumer, Canaan, and Egypt, regions profoundly shaped by African cultures. These interactions, as portrayed in biblical accounts, depict waves of nomadic Semites settling in Canaan. Here, they encountered the indigenous inhabitants, the sedentary Black Canaanites, who maintained deep connections to Egypt and had inhabited the region for millennia prior to the influx of Semitic migrations. Many Semitic nomads originating from Mesopotamia were eventually drawn to Canaan, enticed by its relative prosperity, famously described in biblical scriptures as the land flowing with milk and honey. Conversely, other Semitic groups continued their migration to Egypt, a pivotal center of the ancient African world. During antiquity, the African sphere of influence in the Near East, particularly under Egyptian hegemony, interacted extensively with these Semitic newcomers. Egyptian texts often collectively referred to the diverse Semitic groups as Asians, reflecting a broad categorization rather than delineating specific ethnic or national identities. Intriguingly, the term Asia itself, now synonymous with the continent, derives from an ancient Egyptian word meaning the East or Eastern. Hence, when Egyptians labeled Semitic groups as Asians, they simply acknowledged their Eastern origins. Long before Semitic groups arrived in Egypt, the ancient Egyptians were acquainted with them, particularly the nomadic tribes notorious for their raids and activities across the Near East in pursuit of resources. At times, Egypt intervened, especially in Canaan, to suppress raids or disturbances caused by these Semitic groups. The tomb of Khnumhotep II contains an authentic phonetic fresco dating back to approximately 1900 BCE, documenting the inaugural entry of a group of around 40 Semites into Egypt led by their chief. This artwork provides invaluable insights into their presence in Egypt during this era, depicting the Semites entering Egypt peacefully, paying homage to the pharaoh and acknowledging Egyptian authority. Upon entering territories inhabited by African peoples such as the Canaanites and Egyptians, Semitic groups initially embraced polytheistic beliefs. It was through interactions with these African communities that they were introduced to monotheism and its associated practices, signifying a significant cultural exchange. A compelling narrative in the book of Genesis exemplifies this cultural interchange. Melchizedek, the king of Salem and a priest of the Most High God, warmly welcomed Abram, later known as Abraham, with bread and wine, bestowing blessings in the name of God, the Lord of heaven and earth. This encounter holds significance as it implies that Melchizedek, a Canaanite king, already adhered to monotheism before Abraham's arrival in Canaan, later termed ancient Palestine. This suggests that African Canaanites practiced monotheism before Abram's arrival, challenging the notion that Abram introduced monotheism to Semitic religious traditions. Essentially, the Bible inadvertently reveals that monotheism was ingrained among African peoples before Abram ventured into their lands. Furthermore, the passage where Melchizedek blesses Abram underscores that the earliest monotheistic rituals Abram participated in, like sharing meals of bread and wine, originated from African traditions. These rituals, integral to the worship of Osiris in Nile Valley civilizations like Egypt and Sudan, were shared with Abram by King Melchizedek, highlighting the African origins of some of the earliest monotheistic practices. The tales of Abraham and other nomadic figures in the Bible, including Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, illustrate how Semitic peoples assimilated monotheism and cultural practices from African communities, particularly the Canaanites and Egyptians. These interactions are vividly portrayed in biblical narratives, demonstrating how early Semitic nomads adopted customs and religious rites from the advanced civilizations they encountered in Africa. This exchange of ideas and practices underscores the profound influence that African civilizations had on the shaping of Semitic cultures and religious beliefs. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. The term Hebrews in the Bible initially referred to individuals like Abraham and Jacob and their families, rather than denoting a distinct people. Over time, as these patriarchs and their groups settled in Canaan or Egypt, the concept of a Hebrew people gradually evolved. Real historical events likely served as the inspiration for the biblical narratives concerning the Hebrews, whose existence is primarily documented in Scripture. The term Hebrew likely finds its roots in ancient texts from Egypt and Canaan, where words like Habir or Apir were initially used in a derogatory manner to describe scattered nomadic Semitic groups. Initially, these terms weren't specific to any particular people or language, but rather served as disparaging labels for these groups. However, over time, the term Hebrew evolved to signify a distinct ethnic and linguistic group. The biblical tale of the Exodus, chronicling the Hebrew people's escape from slavery in Egypt, and their journey to the Promised Land, holds a central place in Judeo-Christian tradition, yet it lacks substantial historical evidence to validate its authenticity. Despite its profound religious and cultural significance, scholars and archaeologists have struggled to find concrete evidence corroborating the events narrated in the biblical text. In his book Nations, Negres et Cultures, Cheikh Anta Diop offers insights into the potential origins of the biblical Exodus account. Diop proposes that Moses lived during the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten around 1400 BC. Akhenaten is renowned for his efforts to revive Egypt's ancient monotheistic beliefs, aiming to centralize religious worship around the sun disk, known as the Aten. This period marked a significant religious reformation in ancient Egypt, with Akhenaten seeking to consolidate the country's religious practices to bolster the unity of the empire. During the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt, particularly under the rule of Pharaoh Thutmose III, Egypt witnessed substantial power and territorial expansion. The empire became a melting pot of cultures and peoples from its conquered territories, contributing to a diverse social and religious milieu. Akhenaten's religious reforms, geared toward concentrating worship around the Aten, left a lasting impact on Egyptian society and potentially influenced neighboring regions as well. The religious tumult during Akhenaten's reign offers a plausible historical backdrop for the biblical Exodus narrative. Some scholars speculate that Moses, influenced by Akhenaten's monotheistic reforms, introduced similar beliefs to the Hebrew people, eventually prompting their departure from Egypt. This interpretation suggests that the Exodus story may have been inspired by historical events and interactions during this transformative epoch in ancient Egypt. Akhenaten's monotheistic veneration of the Aten represented a departure from conventional Egyptian polytheism, where reverence was accorded to various gods and goddesses. Egyptologists and scholars have noted the unprecedented nature of Akhenaten's religious reforms and the challenges they pose to traditional interpretations of ancient Egyptian religion. The exclusive focus on the Aten as the sole deity underscores Akhenaten's radical departure from established religious norms, consolidating religious authority around himself as the intermediary between the divine and the populace. The biblical narrative of the Hebrews' entrance and settlement in Palestine, depicted as the Promised Land, is marked by substantial violence and conquest. As per biblical directives, the Canaanites were to be eradicated to claim their land and possessions for Israel, as detailed in the book of Joshua. However, historical evidence, such as the Merneptah stele dating back to 1207 BC, poses a challenge to the biblical timeline of an immediate post-Exodus conquest of Canaan. The Merneptah stele, an ancient Egyptian inscription, suggests that Egypt retained control over Canaan well beyond the period following the 18th dynasty, contradicting the biblical narrative of a swift and direct conquest by the Hebrews. This disparity underscores the intricacies involved in interpreting historical events and emphasizes the importance of considering multiple sources of evidence. The integration of Semites into Canaanite society stands as a pivotal chapter in ancient Near Eastern history, marked by a gradual process of cultural assimilation and linguistic adoption. Initially, Semitic groups, including those later identified as Hebrews, engaged with Canaanite communities, absorbing elements of their culture and language. Over time, this fusion of Semitic and Canaanite influences gave rise to what we now recognize as Semitic languages, establishing the distinct linguistic identity of Semitic peoples. This gradual integration set the stage for the formation of political entities like Judah and Israel in 1000 BCE. These developments unfolded during a dynamic regional landscape characterized by shifting power dynamics, including the decline of traditional powers such as Egypt and the emergence of new groups. As established empires waned, smaller states seized opportunities to assert themselves, leading to the emergence of independent Semitic kingdoms across the region. The rise of Judaism can be viewed as a response to the political instability prevalent during this era. With the Assyrian and Babylonian empires encroaching upon the Canaanite region, Semitic kingdoms like Israel and Judah faced existential threats. The conquests of these empires ultimately spelled the downfall of the Semitic kingdoms, with Israel succumbing in 722 BCE and Judah in 587 BCE. The dispersal of Semitic populations in the aftermath of these events contributed to the legend of the lost tribes of Israel, reflecting the tumultuous upheaval experienced by these communities. During this chaos, dispersed Semitic communities sought to rebuild their nations and identities upon their return to Canaan. The establishment of Judaism as the religion of these nations played an important role in this process. The compilation of Holy Scriptures served as the bedrock for reconstructing the Hebrew Bible, including the history, laws, and religious beliefs of the Jewish people. Concepts like the chosen people and the people of God were introduced to instill a sense of national pride and identity among Semitic communities. Ezra, a priestly scribe, is credited with much of the work on the Hebrew Bible. Despite the lack of historical evidence for many events described in the Bible, such as the Hebrews' enslavement in Egypt or their 40-year desert journey, these narratives have profoundly shaped the identity and religious beliefs of the Jewish nation. The stories contained within the Hebrew Bible serve as a testament to the shared heritage and cultural memory of Semitic peoples, providing a sense of continuity and identity amidst the challenges of exile and dispersion. The Codex Amiatinus, an 8th century CE manuscript, offers a visual representation of Ezra's role in compiling the Hebrew Bible. The painting depicting Ezra immersed in this task symbolizes a pivotal moment in the formation of Judaism, underscoring the significance of compiling Holy Scriptures in shaping Jewish identity. In crafting Judaism and the Tanakh, the religious and cultural traditions of the various regions where Semitic peoples had lived and traveled were woven together, creating a diversity of beliefs and practices that continue to define Jewish identity today. The development of Judaism represents a fusion of cultural influences from various regions, underscoring the diverse roots of this ancient faith. Mesopotamia played a significant role in this amalgamation, contributing elements such as Sumerian texts that shaped Judaic beliefs and practices. Additionally, traditions from Canaan were incorporated into the emerging Jewish identity. Egyptian influences, notably the monotheistic veneration of Aten and teachings linked to Osiris, also made significant contributions to Judaism. These varied cultural elements were melded with the Semitic people's own patriarchal and martial traditions, resulting in a subtle religious tradition. After enduring a period of exile during which the Jewish community was scattered and their homeland lay in ruins, they set about rebuilding their society. It was during this period that they began to identify themselves as Jews, a term originally referring to individuals from Judea, also known as Judah or Yehuda, a region in Canaan. Despite the Canaanite status as the original inhabitants of the area, the settlement of Semitic populations in Judea following the exile gave rise to the Jewish identity. The history of these Semitic peoples, marked by nomadic lifestyles and subjugation by various powers, nurtured the concept of a Messiah, a leader who would deliver them from oppression and establish a sovereign nation. The biblical accounts of illustrious kingdoms led by figures like David and Solomon reflect the Jewish people's longing for a grand national identity. However, historical realities diverged from these legendary narratives as Jewish states such as Judah and Israel remained relatively small and vulnerable, ultimately falling under the dominion of successive empires including Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Despite the biblical promise of a sovereign land, the Jewish people endured centuries of conquests and coexistence with diverse populations. The challenges faced by the Jewish people are vividly chronicled within the Hebrew Bible itself, through stories of conflicts and battles, including the iconic tale of David and Goliath. While symbolic of Jewish resilience, these narratives highlight the historical struggles of the Jewish nation, where aspirations for greatness were often thwarted by external forces. The legendary portrayals of grand Jewish kingdoms served as sources of inspiration and optimism, reinforcing the collective yearning for a significant national destiny. Interactions between Semitic nomads and the peoples of African regions, such as the Canaanites and Egyptians, are extensively documented in ancient texts, including the Bible. Accounts like Abraham and Hagar or Joseph's marriage to an Egyptian woman illustrate the cultural blending and exchange of ideas that transpired over centuries. Despite these interactions resulting in cultural and genetic fusion, Semitic groups maintained their allegiance to their Mesopotamian origins, prioritizing continuity with their ancestral heritage over adopting an African identity. The Ethiopian Jews' Jewish identity is a topic of debate, with various theories proposed. Some scholars suggest that Ethiopian Jews may trace their lineage back to ancient Egyptians who followed the monotheistic Aten cult under Pharaoh Akhenaten, whose religious reforms influenced early Judaism. Another perspective views Ethiopian Jews as having converted to Judaism at some point in their history. Genetic studies support the idea that they are ethnically Ethiopian with no external origins. Ethiopia has been a focal point of discussions regarding its connections to Judaism, partly due to the legendary tale of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. While the Bible mentions a meeting between these figures, it does not detail a romantic relationship, a narrative later developed in the Ethiopian text in the 14th century. This highlights that while cultures and beliefs have been shared and adopted across different peoples and regions throughout history, the fundamental identity of African communities, including their monotheistic beliefs centered around a single deity, is rooted in the African continent itself. Africans aim to dispel the erroneous Western belief that they were idol worshippers before the introduction of Abrahamic religions. According to African beliefs, creation reflects the capabilities of the Creator, showcasing vast diversity from plants and animals to humans, indicating the Creator's multifaceted potential. This diversity suggests that the Creator has various aspects or forms of existence and action, including roles as the master of the universe, the ultimate creator, a parental figure, the sovereign of time and eternity, and the embodiment of power, love, truth, and justice, among others. For example, divine love is likened to the maternal affection of Isis for her child, while the aspect of wisdom or knowledge is represented by Thoth. These deities are not separate gods, but different aspects of the same divine essence. The Creator's androgynous nature, being both male and female, explains why these divine aspects are depicted in both masculine and feminine forms. What do you think about white Europeans rejecting that black people are the descendants of black Israelites? Isn't it true that the reason why white supremacists feel hostile toward black people is because they know black people are special? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts about what you have read about black Israelites in the Bible. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.